Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global online audience, and welcome to the Biopharma CEO Investor Forum as we hear long-term plans for sustainable value creation from an industry that is literally in the process of helping to save the world. Next. Hi, I'm Daryl Brewster, and I'm CEO of Chief Executives for Corporate Purpose. And we're delighted to partner with the Biopharma Sustainability Roundtable for today and tomorrow's CEO Investor Forum. This is the ninth in a series of CEO Investor Forums that we've held, at which leading CEOs are sharing their sustainable long-term business plans. It has never been more important as we hear about the interest around ESG and sustainable business. And I cannot think of an industry from which I more want to hear than from the CEOs of leading biopharma companies. A remarkable job that they have done over the past year. In a world when the fastest prior vaccine had taken over 4 years to create, many of the companies that we're working with today have helped develop and produce vaccines that are helping to change the world in the face of a global pandemic. Still more work to go on that, and we'll hear panels about vaccines and about the future of the industry. And we'll also hear from those who are actually making it happen, the CEOs of many of the companies, not only working on vaccines, but other critical medical issues and health issues that truly can help the world be a better place. I'd like to thank our sponsors who make this event possible. Without them, we wouldn't be here. To the group at Calvert, Cohen, and Deloitte, we do appreciate your efforts and work on behalf of this Biopharma CEO Investor Forum. We'd like to also thank our media sponsors who've helped get the word out at 3BL, Edelman, CNBC, the Financial Times, and Red Havas. Thank you for getting the word out. Thanks also to our partners at the Biopharma Sustainability Roundtable. Also to the CECP team who's helped to make this work. And thank you all from across the globe and our companies that are participating for joining us. What I think promises to be a very productive, informative day and a half as we hear more about not only where we are in the biopharma industry, but where we are headed to help address world health challenges. Next up. For those who don't know, CECP is a network of well over 200 of the world's leading companies. It was founded by CEOs for CEOs back in the end of the last century, back in the late 1990s, with the belief that the world's leading companies can and should be a force for good in society. And we work with our companies, investors, issuers, and intermediaries to really help improve the dialogue around how companies can be a positive force in the world. Part of that is broadening the time horizon from simply short-term financial gains to long-term value creation. And we're delighted to do that as we help companies engage with communities, help them to tell their stories, help them to advance diversity, and to really improve the sustainability of businesses across the spectrum of environment, social, both internal as well as external social, and proper governance. One of the challenges the CECP network saw as it works with its 200 plus companies, both in the US and around the globe, next slide, is the amazing interest in, but challenges around communicating about sustainable business. We're all hearing about ESG and the many metrics and ratings and rankings that are out there. It can get pretty complex. And as investors, we understand that the vast majority of the value of companies is in its expected, discounted future cash flows, risk adjusted. These future cash flows really don't always get the same amount of time as we do when we look back in recent financial numbers or very short-term expectations. And that's really what we're about doing, is how do we really help people understand not just where companies are and have been, but especially where they're going. Our research indicates that approximately 80 to 90% of company disclosure is about backward-looking financial insights. And yet the value of companies is in the future. And that's why we founded the CEO Investor Forum, to really help improve that dialogue and to help clarify the various terms and focus efforts so that we can have better dialogue between investors and issuers on where business is headed. Next slide. We founded this group with a world-class advisory board of investors, issuers, and intermediaries that have really helped develop the template, the framework you'll hear from our CEOs over the next day and a half. It addresses 9 key themes, 22 questions to help us to clarify and set a standard of what companies can and should share around their future expectations. We're also delighted to have fabulous co-chairs that we'll be hearing from today and tomorrow. Alex Gorsky, Chairman and CEO of J&J, and Bill McNabb, the former CEO at Vanguard. And we appreciate all of the contributions that this group has made to really advance the notion of sustainable business. Next. So far, in our first 8 CEO investor forums, we've heard from companies representing over $2 trillion of market cap. Today, we'll get to the $3 trillion level with today and tomorrow. Investors representing 25 trillion have averaged being on the call. We think that number can go even higher today. And we expect an online audience here in the thousands. And we appreciate you joining us for these. You get a sense of the companies that have presented and shared their plans. We'll actually be hearing from Merck and GSK presenting the second level of their plans. We believe this is something that companies should be updating on a regular and annual basis. We've also, as part of this research, been able to really develop some executive ready research that I think you'll find quite valuable, and we'll be sending some links to you. That work includes ESG in the earnings call. How can companies talk about their ESG efforts in their ongoing cadence of communication? Also, the power or the return on corporate purpose, which shows that purpose-driven companies, many of which we'll be hearing from today, outperform low-purpose companies over time. And then also research that will be released today on disclosures in the biopharma industry over disclosure on long-term issues. Lots of research there. Go to cecp.co to get more of those insights that can really help advance this field. Next, please. One area that we found very valuable as we've spoken with our companies is to really establish a network so that companies can share their best practices and investors along the learning journey. The CEO Investor Forum was launched at the end of last calendar year. We also already have more than 15 companies that are participating, and we're able to provide companies some fast-track support and insights that can really help them on the ESG and sustainable business journey. From a company snapshots, quick looks at how your company looks, to updates for boards, ongoing workshops, and networking, as well as helping to coach companies through the process that you'll be hearing on of the next few days. We invite those who are interested to go to cecp.co to learn more and to think about joining this growing network of companies as we move forward. With that, it is my pleasure and interest in introducing the chairman and CEO of J&J, Johnson & Johnson, Alex Gorsky. Alex, as I mentioned, is one of the co-chairs of this initiative. He also sits on the CEP board, and he has really been a major proponent of this notion of really helping us think longer term. Short term matters, right? Liquidity is important in the public markets and all the rest, but the long term investments that companies are making today to prepare for the future are just so critical. And as Alex notes, other than the J&J credo, the most important thing they can really do is really how they think about investing over the long term. And there are few industries where that is more important than in biopharma. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Alex Gorsky, Chairman and CEO of J&J.
Hello, and welcome to the 9th CEO Investor Forum. I'm Alex Gorsky, Chairman and CEO of Johnson & Johnson. As co-chair of the CEO Investor Forum Advisory Board, it's an honor to kick off this year's event. I think it was about 4 years ago that CECP's Board of Boards held a closed-door meeting with CEOs. Now, at this meeting, 86% of leaders said short-term pressures were a key barrier to managing for long-term value creation. In response, Daryl Brewster and CECP launched the CEO Investor Forum. Now, the original idea was to empower companies to refocus investor expectations towards the long term. They recognized that sharing forward-looking information could lead to a more sustainable future. And now, more than ever, companies are being called upon to demonstrate their corporate purpose and address environmental, social, and governance priorities to help truly drive long-term value creation for all their stakeholders. The pandemic, well, it starkly revealed that corporations have a real responsibility to help solve some of the world's most pressing challenges. And even as we face great disruption and lead through moments of economic volatility, our responsibilities go beyond short-term planning. We must keep our sights on forward-looking innovations and drive positive change for all our stakeholders. At Johnson & Johnson, we focus on sustainability efforts where we believe we can have the greatest impact. But the events of 2020 motivated us to act even more urgently. And thanks to the resilience and dedication of our colleagues around the world, our company, it remained agile while staying focused on the long term. And this allowed us to generate social, environmental, and economic value for patients, consumers, healthcare providers, employees, the communities in which we live and work, business partners and investors, in other words, for all of our Credo stakeholders. Now, in areas where we believe we can achieve the greatest impact, we set goals, and each year we report our progress with independent assurance validation. Today and tomorrow, you'll hear my peers share their own sustainable plans and goals. Our shared commitment to lead purpose-driven organizations is essential to generating inclusive, sustainable economic growth. Thank you again for joining us and for all your great work. Enjoy the forum.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex, for your comments as we open the day and a half here Biopharma CEO Investor Forum. We appreciate your leadership as our co-chair of this organization, and we also appreciate your leadership of J&J over the past year and the remarkable progress you made. I am thankful, particularly for the J&J jab I received, and we'll talk more in some of our vaccine panels about how we can get access around the globe and around the world. With that, I'd like to invite you to join our next session. You'll see the directions on your screen, and we'll hear from Christopher Weber, the President and Chief Executive Officer at Takeda Pharmaceutical Companies. We appreciate your participation and engagement today. Please use the chat function, and we look forward to a successful event. Thank you all. And on to the next session. Please do follow your directions.